Yes, to win the ground, your Army has taken to the air.
Arriving in Vietnam, there were 12 locations there that optometrists were assigned to. I ended up getting sent to the furthest northern location, which was right on the demilitarized zone, and for the 101st Airborne. There was 15,000 troops at Camp Eagle, and so I was the head of the eye section of a MASH setting. There were a lot of optometrists in the military at that time, and collectively, periodically, we would get together. There's an organization in optometry called the Armed Forces Optometric Association. There was a lot of complaining among all of us that when we returned to the States, that we were unable to do so many things that we had learned over the course of a year to be able to do with regularity. That shaped all of our ideas on we needed to fix that. We needed to change the limitations and get rid of some of the limitations that hamstrung us from being able to do what we were perfectly capable of doing. We really had the education for it. We could do so many of those things, but politically, the climate didn't want that to happen because, in contrast to the military, which money was not a factor, if we were to be allowed to do some of that, as one of the old sayings we used to say is, we're getting in somebody else's rice bowl, and they don't like us getting in there, and yet it was so appropriate for the way that we are distributed across the country. Optometrists are located throughout the country in every little nook and cranny. Every little town, small town, has got an optometrist, and ophthalmology is located in the cities, and rightly so. That's where they should be, and yet so many eye injuries and eye conditions, diseases, and whatnot can easily be managed in remote areas in the small communities out in rural America. And it just seemed to us that it didn't make any sense to not allow that to be done. And so when I returned to the United States, I was located in a small town in the southern corner of Oregon, and it was 100 miles to the nearest ophthalmologist. And so when you have people with eye injuries, cataracts, macular problems, all these things, glaucoma, all the things that can be easily managed by optometrists, and we're unable to do that, and we have to send people 100 miles who can't see well to start with, or are in a lot of pain because of an eye injury, and we have to have them drive 100 miles just to get medication that they could have easily gotten from us. It was ludicrous, and so we were highly motivated to change that.
It's remarkable that you were able to perform procedures in the field under duress, under combat circumstances in Vietnam, and yet you return to Oregon to practice optometry. And then you find that you can't, under current legislation, perform some of the things that you did in the field 50 years ago. Do you find that frustrating? Do you find it now like you really want to advocate for others so that they can practice to the full extent of their own training and education?
First off, we needed to just get our state in line because every single state controls its healthcare practice. I started talking to our association, state association, Oregon association, and asking them, why we weren't fixing this problem. They said, you don't understand. You don't understand how powerful the American Medical Association is. I mean, they are incredibly powerful, and they rule. You think you can change them? And I said, yeah, but we're right. And they said, I don't care if you're right. It has nothing to do with being right. We know that's a better thing to do. We know you would be better off doing those things. We know that that's been like, should have been that way for a long time. But you don't understand the political power that the AMA has.
You served as both a board member and the president of UPA for so many years, and how has UPA helped as an organization to help shape legislation?
Well, to start with, we had a president of the Oregon Optometric Association, or OOPA. We had a president that was just installed. He was a very smart guy, had been incredibly successful in business. His name was Robert Holcomb. And as I explained all that to him, he said, well, why don't we do it then? And as we talked, we came to a statement that really resonated. We said, what do we got to lose? Because at that time, we didn't get any referrals from ophthalmology at all, ever. So we didn't have anything to lose. We could be annoying to them, and even if we lost, the worst that happened is we would just lose, but nothing bad would come of it. And so we started asking the other members of the association, and pretty soon I was able to gather enough of the percentage of our state association, which is about 300 at that time. So, and the thing that made such a difference that I realized was when I went to little communities that only an optometrist is in, and I said, why don't we do this? Wouldn't it be a good idea? And they all said, oh, absolutely, but we're going to go against AMA? And that was the thinking. And so finally, I got gathered up enough to say, well, let's do it. Now, there were 4 states that were working on that and had collaborated through the American Optometric Association. And so Rhode Island didn't have, I think, 1 or 2 ophthalmologists at the time in the entire state. And they just said, let's try it. And they passed it without even a hitch. And what we were after was just the ability to diagnose eye diseases with the use of a handful of what we call diagnostic pharmaceuticals or diagnostic drops. And we realized that maybe we shouldn't go for every drug in the book, but we just wanted to do a better job of diagnosing conditions. And you need to be able to dilate eyes. You need to be able to have some proparacaine to anesthetize an eye when it was hurting. You needed a few of these kind of things that seemed so obvious. And so anyway, Rhode Island passed it. And so if Rhode Island can do it, maybe some of the rest of us can. And so Pennsylvania, oddly enough, which we never would have expected, but Pennsylvania was able to figure out how to get the votes. And it took 3 years, but Pennsylvania then passed it. And so now we have Oregon and we have Kentucky, and we're all out there knocking ourselves out, sharing information, and we had been able to get the AOA's blessing and assistance. And so the attorney for the AOA started teaching us about politics and how to do this. And so we formed this committee that was not official, but it was official, and it was to help us figure this out. And so we were on the phone every day with Kentucky trying to figure out different ways to present things and how to learn how to change these laws. In April of '76, Kentucky passed the law, and 1 month later, Oregon passed it. And that was a huge incentive now where the rest of the nation sat back and said, wow, maybe we can do this. But the one key thing that no one had recognized up to that point was the power that rural optometry had, and they just didn't know how to use it. So once we got the drift on how to use it and knew how now to apply that, then what I always called that was our beginning.